You are now listening to You Heard. In today's episode of You Heard, we are joined by Celine, aka Coach Baddie, founder of Sex with Baddies, and we dive into how boundaries are an act of self-love and the importance of having confidence in the bedroom. On today's episode of You Heard, we are joined by Celine, who is a pleasure-positive sex educator and relationship and movement coach from Florida. She is a speaker and an educator through workshops where she promotes sexual health, sexual confidence, and sexploration. When she's not encouraging people to be a badass and feel liberated, she's usually in a dance studio or at home using movement through pole fitness as a way to be fit and have fun. She is most proud and blessed that she is providing a space in which people feel open to sharing their experiences with her. She hopes to inspire people by her unconventional willingness to put herself out there for a greater cause. Welcome, Celine, aka Coach Baddie.
Wow, thank you so much for your intro, and I am doing absolutely amazing. How are you?
I'm great. I'm super excited.
Me too. Thank you so much for, just opening up this space. This is amazing. By the way, y'all can call me Coach Baddie. My community name is Sex with Baddies. So yeah. But as far as what we're getting into today, I definitely wanted to speak about boundaries and how that is definitely an act of self-love. So just like some mindset talk, getting us in the right mindset as far as just waking up in the morning, going to sleep, just overall mental health. Also, we're going to mix in some questions and how to actually have a pleasurable session for yourself, with your partner, just identifying pleasures all around you. I really wanted to talk about that because that's something so important, really like seeing the beauty in the world around you. We're speaking about boundaries. We're speaking about self-love. And one thing that's really that I know that we're going to get into a lot is authentic confidence, which is one of my major topics. So yeah, that's what we're getting into today.
I love that we're talking about boundaries because I feel like it's being very much thrown around a lot more, especially on social media, which is the platforms, that both you and I use. And boundaries is something that I have been working really hard to practice and create. When it comes to boundaries, it's so much more like cutting things and people out of your life. And I think sometimes that's how it's taken at face value. What do I need to do to protect my peace? What do I need to do to be able to love myself, to be able to fully feel safe in myself and safe with others? But at the root of it, it's really all about knowing yourself in order to be able to create that, which is why I love that you tie boundaries to being an act of self-love, because knowing yourself is loving yourself.
Yes, no, that is... You are definitely nailing it. And like you were saying, like boundaries is about protection, and it's so important to protect our peace because energy shifts so much, and we are receptible to it. So it doesn't even have to be something that you're going through. Like you could just wake up a certain way and you're just like, I need to just shift my energy or anything like that. So one, as far as just protection, as humans, we need to protect ourselves from all things. Okay.
Right. Right.
And that just means, and that doesn't mean to be overly like cautious or anything like that, or provide any type of anxieties, but this is to make you feel as balanced as possible. Right. That's one thing that's really important. That's one thing that I also tell like my clients, is really important to be just balanced in general, and boundaries is a good way to help you with balancing all things in your life, for sure.
Balance is like the number one thing that I probably struggle with as an individual. I'm just a very fiery, passionate person. Be extremely aggressive in the things that I do, even if it's like an act of love towards somebody else or even towards myself, it can come off as very aggressive. And I'm really trying to practice gentleness, which is not something that I'm used to. And so being able to like understand that I'm a complex human being. I don't always only have to be one way. And to open myself up to understanding that chill. And it's okay to approach things a bit more softly. And that doesn't necessarily change the integrity or the intention of what I am trying to do or say.
No, definitely. See, for me, my chart, well, my birth chart is like full of balances. Like it's crazy. Like I'm a Pisces, so like I'm very flowy, and then I also have a lot of air, and and it's just like, okay, flow.
Yeah.
Flowing in air, that's just, yeah, I'm one of those people. And it's just so funny because I just recently did I did a birth chart reading. Basically, she told me that my North Node is a Libra, and they're like over like the balances, in life. So it's like, I'm supposed to embody that Libra energy for sure. And it's like, oh snap, that's me. And then I don't know if you're familiar. I mean, are you familiar with like your moon?
Yes. My birth chart is very like Capricorn heavy. So not only I am Aries, I also have Capricorn. So it's like I'm gonna run through all the walls and just not stop. So I'm very aware of that. But that Gemini piece, that Gemini rising piece, is really kind of what is that voice in the back of my head that reminds me that I need to have balance, that I'm more than just this one version of myself. Because Gemini, they're twins. That any Gemini that they're like multiple personalities in one human being, and they're just very complex creatures. And that piece of myself, that ascending part of myself, is constantly in my head of like, you need to find balance within yourself. You don't always have to go and run and like be on fire literally all the time.
Right. Yeah, cool. No, that makes sense. Yeah, my moon is in Virgo and my rising is in Aquarius.
You're fabulous. That's awesome.
I'm just like, OMG, like, yeah. And then like, I just learned that Pisces is the opposite sign of Virgo. And I'm like, there we go with the balance again, Like
you said, we're human, we're complex, we're supposed to be like, let's be a lot. I love being a lot. I remember there was a time in my life where I thought being a lot and being too much was a bad thing. And I am embracing that it is such a good thing, and it makes me who I am. And being able to accept being a lot and overly dramatic and over the top and an exhibitionist is what has allowed me to love myself, because I'm bursting at the seams all the time, and that is okay.
No, it's, my whole page is a lot. So my career is a lot. I'm a lot. Yeah, I need to get that freaking tattooed at this point. But I love it. I've always been a lot, and I'm here embracing it just like you. So this is amazing.
Yes, absolutely. So being that, you're Coach Baddie, and this is very much your work when it comes to like you said, sexploration. I love that word. When it comes to boundaries, what are some of the things that you feel are important to communicate when it comes to your sexploration and boundaries?
Immediately, I just thought about like saying, just knowing your limits, that you would go. When you're having sex, you never want to feel like you're having a moment of contemplation. You can have those moments, but you want to try as, little as possible, because it doesn't allow you to be fully into the sex. So it kind of makes you be in your head a little bit. So you just want to make sure, one, that you trust the person, or that you even have if you're doing like a hookup, you at least need to have trust for yourself. Like you need to trust yourself to be able to set your boundaries and set your limits. I think, and I say that's an act of self-love, is because then when you state those boundaries and those limits, you now know that that's out in the air. You did what you had to do. You set your boundaries so that no one could really cross you. No one should really cross you. But of course that happens, but the power in just setting that boundary, that you won't have to even think about blaming yourself for anything. I think that's just something that I want to just tell people. Like, let's just try to like teach our people how to set healthy boundaries in all lives, like in your sex life, your work life, your, all of your lives. You definitely should set those boundaries just to know that you did it. You could have had a conversation about like not wanting to do anal sex, right? And if they're and if they're like going like around in that spot, you stated that you don't want anything, you know, around anal sex, but it's like, oh, you will start to think, should I have been specific? OMG, should I have been specific? Should I have said like, I don't want no type of anal play or nothing? But it's like the person should have asked at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? The person should have said like, can I explore? Really, they shouldn't even ask. You know, like we always blame ourselves for so much things, or we start to question ourselves. And that's just one thing that I want to build my people to know, like, you know, your values can change, your limits can change. Like, you are the owner of you, and you demand that, period.
Yeah, there's no other way to say that. And like you said, it's something that needs to be applied across all of our lives and all of the different compartments that make up our day to day. And I think we're just, as like a human race, we are conditioned to kind of like sit back and not say anything. We're not necessarily taught to question authority, or at least from the communities that I'm from. You don't question authority because it puts you in compromising situations. And you know, that idea is then also brought into the bedroom. It's brought into very vulnerable places where it's like, nah, like you have to be like, this is what I'm okay with. This is what I'm not okay with. Don't do this. Don't do that. Because like what you just said, like you're the owner of you. And sex is something that is so vulnerable. You are literally in your most rawest state. So you have to do everything in your power to protect yourself in your rawest state, and be able to communicate with your partners, whatever it may be, hook up, whatever, and say like, here's what I'm cool with, here's what I'm not cool with. And like you said, you know, the act of asking questions. If you are that person that wants to explore a little further, that's awesome. But ask the other person if they are okay with that. Maybe they don't even know what it is, and you have to kind of paint them a picture and like, here's what I would do, here's what's going to happen, here's what it can lead to, etc. And sex is something that takes two. And I think a point that kind of reminded me of my own experiences is being able to understand what you are and aren't comfortable with. And again, coming back to that, knowing yourself and self-love, when you're engaging in something that you may not necessarily be comfortable in, you're in your head, and you can't enjoy anything. It's not even about, oh, we're going to explore this. It's like, no, I'm in my head because am I comfortable with this? Am I not comfortable with this? Like, this kind of feels weird. You know, say something. It's okay to say something. It's okay to voice something. In my most recent experience, so I had a baby about a little over a year ago, and I've had to have like reconstructive surgery of my vaginal canal. And I've had like all these different like growths that were growing, and had made it painful and difficult to have sex. So when I was finally cured and was pretty much cleared to be able to have sex again, which was extremely recent, the act of going into sex was so scary and overwhelming for both my partner and I. For me, it was like, you know, am I going to tear something? Are my scars going to open up? One of the issues that I had was I had fissures that were unhealed, and it kept essentially overhealing itself and growing this like granulated tissue or whatever. So I'm like, is this penetration going to cause another fissure to open up? And then I'm going to have to go through this process all over again. And then for him, he was out of commission for so long. He's just kind of like, I don't even know how to approach this anymore. And since this is our first time having, you know, sex in over a year, I want to make sure that it's fucking amazing. Like that it's, you know, we're like sweating, messy hair. We both had an amazing time. We both climaxed, all of the greatness. And that puts a lot of pressure on anybody. It's like, you know, entering sex for the first time all over again, and this idea of what sex is supposed to be like, and you're worried about whether or not you're going to be able to perform that in the first place. So, when we were in the act and trying to get into it, we very much communicated, this hurts a little because I'm still sore, or I'm still very tight because of the reconstructive surgery, or, he felt a particular kind of way because of course he doesn't want to hurt me. But also you want to make sure that it feels good at the same time. So it was a lot of, okay, let's stop here. Let's sit down and talk about this. Let's try another time. What can we do better next time to make both of ourselves comfortable? Working in foreplay a lot more, and being able, like, for me, I have to do additional exercises to make it more pleasurable because I'm still very sore and very tight and all this other stuff, but I want to be able to have sex. So I'm like, we got to make the best of both worlds here. So it's a lot of having communication with your partner and not being afraid to say, hey, I'm a little scared, or this is hurting a little, this is uncomfortable. So let's try this, and this, and really mapping it out for each other.
Wow. That, I just want to say, go you for just trying again, and, and just knowing all of this, knowing so much, knowing, just being a active person in your own life. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, thank you.
No, that's definitely, that's amazing. And you went into some, details that it's like, what the boundaries and all of the things that we're talking about, I feel like you're doing pretty good. We have to give ourselves credit. We have to give ourselves credit because the pain that you've been through is worth you exploring it, and it is worth you trying to make it better, and trying to make it, work, with your partner.
Communication is key. So I'm a huge communicator. I majored in communication when I went to college. Like I said, I love talking to people. My partner is not a talker. He's not a communicator. So we've worked very hard to help him feel comfortable in giving himself space to have a voice. So I try to practice communicating and giving him space to do so as often as possible. So yes, we do communicate a lot because I understand the importance of it, but I also want to help my partner feel comfortable in doing it as well.
Yeah. Okay. So basically you're the mass communicator.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're good at communication, and you're just trying to help your partner, work their way up, because it is a journey. So definitely that's good. Definitely the communication. You're gonna teach them, a new way of life, because once you learn how to communicate, like, so much things like opens up doors for you. You feel more grounded, you feel more safe because you feel like you can like activate that, like, that voice of reason with whatever you're going through, because in life there's some oftentimes we speak to people every day, people coming at us like different, like weirdly, or like, like sometimes someone is really nice or sometimes someone is really rude. And it's like, once you can like be able to communicate, whether that is I say workplace a lot because people are struggling.
Absolutely.
I don't even know what to call it anymore because I've just been an entrepreneur for so long. Yeah, I just think when I was talking about, and that ties directly into, just speaking on your boundaries and really knowing how to communicate them. And like we said, in all walks of life. So yes, love it.
So I know that we wanted to discuss like how self-love makes you a better partner for yourself and others. And when you posed this question to me before recording, I love that it was not just for your partner, but it was also for yourself, and kind of framing this idea of you are a partner with yourself. And I have a friend of mine who has very much taught me about self-love. I don't think that I grew up really understanding what self-love was until I was in a place where it was like, I really need to love myself or else like I'm going to lose it. And it was more of a decision that I had to make for myself rather than being raised with the idea of loving yourself. And she always puts out there that her first love was herself, which for me, I was like, that sounds like the craziest thing in the world, but in practicing my own self-love, I'm like, yeah, like that makes sense. Like I need to be my own first love, to understand what my love languages are, to understand, you know, like we're talking about what boundaries I need to set, to understand how to take care of myself and create some kind of foundation for how I carry myself in the world. And yes, it can play as an example to the people that are around me and how they love me and how they accept me and embrace me. But before anything else, like you were just talking about, going into the workplace, and the workplace is a crazy place. Thankfully, I in my position, and I have a great relationship with my boss. I'm not in a stressful workplace anymore, but I have been in very horrible, negative workplaces in the past that if you don't have a strong sense of love for yourself and a strong foundation, it can break you. And no one ever wants to be in that kind of position. So I feel like that question was such a great way to expand on. And if you wanted to kind of give some detail about that or some insight on that respective question that you posed.
Yeah. So, and that was, how can self-love make you a better partner for yourself and others? I definitely, I was thinking about what you were saying, and, and how your friend was saying, like, her first love was herself. And when I think about that, I'm thinking about there's people that definitely, their first love is their self. And there's some people, their first love is, was probably one of their partners, right? I feel like they may feel as if, they may be late to the game, but I just feel like I wanted to remind the people that, because we were born with love in our heart, I feel like we always really loved ourselves. Some people had a lot of hard time, but because we had love in our heart, I feel like we are such magnificent people, but unfortunately the world kind of conditioned us and made us
to believe otherwise.
So I feel like, all of us, we had that love, in our hearts for ourselves and for other people. It just got kind of lost in transit. So now it's like our time to like rekindle that love, So I think that's like, for me, that's just been my journey. I feel like that's been like ultimately like my purpose, to rekindle that relationship that's always been in my heart. I just wanted to say that. And I love that your friend definitely said like her first love is herself, because most likely like all of us, because we were all born just with that, like wanting to just be happy, really. And happiness, to me, I mean, that runs on the same frequency as love. Because I think of them as definitely like sisters or twins.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just me. And I really, this work is ultimately what I'm trying to do for people. Just help them love themselves again, or be kind to themselves again, or give themselves a compassion, That's immediately what I thought about that. So yeah, and as far as the question that, like we said, how can self-love make you a better partner for yourself and others, is because, of course, when you have unconditional love for yourself, you can then open up room to have unconditional love for other people. It's hard to have unconditional love for other people and not yourself and feel balanced. It's always us first, and then people. Once we start to have that narrative instilled in society, I feel like things will start to turn around. And honestly, that's what's been happening, especially in this new age.
I love that you said, I think like 3 or 4 times, you said unconditional love. Like, can we emphasize that? Because I think we as a society very much love with condition. Like there is always a clause or an asterisk at the end of our I love yous, or I embrace this, or I'm open to this, or I'm open to that. And it's like, I can only go so far, but when we get to this, I can no longer love you. And taking that and applying that to yourself, it's like, as human beings, again, coming back to the points that we've made of being complex creatures, we live in a complex world. We are going to be amazing and really shitty in a lifetime. There are going to be times where we are the worst versions of ourselves, even when we're trying to be the best versions of ourselves. And that just happens. It's a part of the cycle. It's a part of the death and rebirth of who we are as human beings, and all of the different times in which we live and die in one lifetime as one human being. And when you aren't your best self, are you still going to see yourself through and love yourself? It kind of reminds me of the song 21 Questions. And it's like, you know, are you going to love me if I do this, if I do that, if I do time, if I love chocolate cake and all this other stuff? And it's like, yeah, like there shouldn't be an end point to your love. It's either you love somebody or not. There shouldn't be conditions or limits to what that is. Now, of course, there are things that are outside that maybe put you in a position where you have to create boundaries to protect yourself, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are creating conditions in which you can no longer love yourself or another person. And so I just really wanted to emphasize that, because the unconditional part is what's really important, that you have to see yourself through in the good and the bad, and love yourself through all of your faults and all of your greatness. Like, embrace the whole you, so you can understand how to embrace the whole of other people. Because more often than not, people fall in love with other people's greatness, their potential, and then when they start showing their true colors, when they start showing their weakness, it's like, well, you and I are incompatible, we can't communicate, we can't this, we can't that. And it's like, well, were you ever open to the whole person in the first place? So I think that was just a really important thing to hone in on in regards to what you were saying about that question of like loving yourself and loving others unconditionally.
Yeah.
And then just like tying that to society and all of the hate that we have in society, and that's been there forever. It's not something that's new. We just have social media that puts it on blast. Whereas, you know, back in the day, social media and fancy telephones and stuff didn't exist. So this hate's been around for eons. But, you know, when you really look at the root of the hate that is spewed from one community to another, from one person to another, that hate is rooted in something that person or that community hates or is inconsistent within themselves, where they feel maybe it may be a lack of power, or something that they can't have or possess. So that anger with themselves or their community is then projected out to other people and other communities. So if we think it on a grander scheme of things and everything that has been going on in this world and everything that we're constantly facing on a day-to-day basis, if we really look at it, it comes back to, as you emphasize, that unconditional love. Like, we have to be able to love ourselves to understand how to love others wholly and unconditionally.
For sure. No, for sure. And I feel like some people definitely run away from the word unconditional love because they feel like they will be like, you know, vulnerable to just different situations that they wouldn't like, right? But for me, I just say this is what I call myself. I'm a boundary baddie with unconditional love.
I love like, that. You know? Do you have a t-shirt that says
you know what? Here we go.
Yes, merchandise.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, trust me, I always have these little like little sayings here and there just ready to be on a shirt because it's so needed to be spread. Like, you can have unconditional love just means that, you know what? Because I love myself, I'm not going to be mad at you because it's the energy that I don't want for me, you know?
Yes.
Love is. So it's like, if we can mix that with the boundaries, then we have a baddie, period.
That's the chemical compound. Yeah. That's what we need. Put it on the periodic table or whatever. Done. Explosive
baddies.
I see it. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And it's such a great mixture. And I love what you said of just like the idea of forgiveness, like that. Forgiveness is such a heavy thing, and like you said, it's this fear of being vulnerable and kind of like giving this space to be vulnerable. And forgiveness is very much that. It asks you to be vulnerable and take a step back from all of the defense mechanisms that you put up to protect yourself from a moment in time or moments in time where you were hurt or you were, you know, slighted and jaded and all this other stuff. And saying, you know what, I'm not going to put the energy into this to be mad at you, to hate you, to feel some type of way, to hold the grudge, all of this other stuff. And I don't think people recognize like that takes energy, like that anger and the time that you put into to feel some type of way about somebody because of how they did something or what they said and all this other stuff. It takes energy away from you and you being able to love yourself. So like reserve your energy for the good shit. Don't worry about being mad at this person and hating this person because it takes away from you. Why the hell would you want to take away from yourself in the first place?
Which is why, you know, one thing, you know, even just to tie it back to like how this, you know, comes in with sex and how that mixes in with sex is just when I think about the boundaries and when I'm stating my boundaries in the bedroom, when I go back in the days, I would go in literally thinking like, damn, as soon as I say this boundary, they're going to tell me to get out, or they're going to tell me what, or, you know, they're going to just not state their boundaries, right? Hello. So, and I'll just be like, wow. And then, you know, what got me into this work is to really think about, dang, why every time I want to set a boundary in the bedroom, the person, I'm nervous about what the person's going to say, but what I should be waiting for is their boundaries.
That's so true.
You know, just what is your sex like? What are you bringing to the table? Like, you know what I'm saying? Or who are you? Right?
Yeah.
Who are you? That's what boundaries are. They kind of state a little bit of who you are and how you respect and love yourself at this given moment. So I'm just like, I'm mostly just waiting for, you know, me, I'm just like, I'm a person that I'm just like, when I get into the bedroom in the situation, or like if I'm having any type of hookup, I'm coming in with like, let's just see how this person is going to surprise me today. You know?
Yeah.
Some people, they have a list of boundaries. Some people, I'm showing them my, you know, test results for any STIs, and I'm waiting for theirs. Or
as you should. Yeah.
No, let me tell you something that's really funny that happened too. I had just had some interactions with this person, right? Sex. I don't know why I'm calling it interactions, but it's just what they did was just like really confusing. Basically, I was like, you know what? I don't want to do anything, you know, until we have some papers going. I need to see some, you know, some test results. So he gladly took out his test result, right? Like he had it very much ready. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then he's like, okay, like, can we start having sex, right? And I'm just like thinking like, no, because you have yet to ask me for my STI test results and all that good stuff. How are you? You know what I'm saying? Like it goes.
Yes.
Because what's the point of you pulling yours out if I didn't pull mine out?
No, and that's such a way. I love that. I love that. First of all, it's surprising that people do that because I think it's so important. But the fact that he's like, well, here's mine, but I'm not worried about yours. Like what? Like no, you gotta ask. Like like you said, it does go both ways. Just because you're clean doesn't mean that, you know, we're both in the same boat. And if he has had other partners recently, and if he's not asking that question, that puts you in a compromising situation.
It just really made me feel like he freaking downloaded it from Google. Like, like I was just like, okay, like, you know, and honestly, it's just that the education. It's the education. Like they done forgot the second step. Like, okay, you got the test now. Now we have to go through with the intention, which is for you to not get anything, right? And with the intentions, trust me, intentions and boundaries, they're like cousins. And I had mines ready too. I was just like, let me just see how long it's going to take for me to have to pull mines out. And it was never really a question. So that's something that I want to tell the people, just like, think about what you're doing and why, you know, for sure.
Yes.
Hold on to those values because when you get horny and you're ready, that thing just slips your mind sometimes, and I'm just being real. When you get heated and when you're in the moment, you're not really thinking about the deets, doing it before is important. And I know it doesn't sound sexy to some, but I'm telling you, it will be sexy, because a lot of times people, they're just always in their heads. That's one of the biggest complaints about sex. Like, I'm always in my head. I'm always in, you know what? Because we have to release some thoughts from your mind. Like, there's some things you're holding on to from when we first started having sex.
And this directly ties into the last question that you posed of how can one achieve authentic confidence in the bedroom? So I think one of the major things that can confidence is yes, the way in which that you see yourself, but also like confidence in the situation, confidence in who you're engaging in sex with. So just like tying to your story, that you're confident that this person that you were going to engage sex with has his intentions in order to also be able to ask for your test results, and to like being able to communicate whatever the boundaries are and making sure, it's safe in all different forms. You're able to go into it with confidence, so you don't have to be in your head, because there's nothing for you to think about at that point. You're like, okay, well, I said this, this, and this. They said this, this, and this. The rest is up for us to really just dive into it without having to question who, what, when, where, and why, when you're really trying to get into it.
Right, for sure. And it does help you relax a bit more, because the point is to just slowly begin to relax, and then you can really begin to fall into sex and really just have, mind-blowing orgasms, or not, or just have a good ass time. How can one achieve authentic confidence in the bedroom? Being yourself, of course, but having to find yourself and know yourself is a whole other thing. So really, the answer to that question is you have to begin to do the work of self-learning and self-healing. Healing is the best gift that you can give to yourself. Achieving that authentic confidence is to really heal yourself from things that throw you off. Or identifying what throws you off in the bedroom, because authenticity is really important, because it feels good when you're being true to yourself. And that ties into the confidence, because once you feel true to yourself, then you just feel like you can be you, right? That is what the makeup of authentic confidence is. And when it comes to sex, that's exactly how you want to feel.
Yeah.
Like, you can just be you in this moment and feel that pleasure that you are so deserving of. You just have to begin to do the work in knowing yourself, and start to slowly release any type of shame that you have around your sexuality. And by learning that you gotta follow people that help you out in those topics. So like following sex positive pages, because you do not get this education just randomly on a billboard.
Nope. Or in school, or your parents. Absolutely
nowhere. You have to go digging for this information almost. And that is how you know that you are now doing the work. Once you start bumping up into these pages, I feel accepted. Like, when people go on my page, I want them to immediately feel accepted. It's hard to fully do that, because there's just so much different people, and different, it's hard to kind of hit every single body. But either way, I know that the energy that I put into my work is so that people can feel that way for sure. So I know that I'm doing God's work. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. That's what we're here for. And I feel like I have the confidence to do that. I can consider myself a confidence coach. It's really just, I can't even. At the end of the day, we all looking for happiness. Can I call myself a damn happiness coach? God damn it. I want everyone to receive happiness.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. Put that on your resume as well. Put it on your business card. Put it on a t-shirt as well. Happiness coach. But everything you just said, it brought so many different thoughts to my head. One of the first things that came to my head is being able to know yourself, to understand like how you do sex. and like what sex means to you, how you perform it, and being able to be confident in yourself enough to be confident in the bedroom. And being your truest self is the most important thing. And I remember, and I know that I feel like most society has done this, engaging in sex for the first time, especially if you may have not had the sex conversation in depth the way that a sex education or a sex coach page may put out there. I feel like conversations that we may have with parents who are open to having the sex talk doesn't go anywhere in depth of some of the pages that, you know, like your page and other pages that are out there that are really putting of like, this is everything that sex encompasses. It's very like penis, vagina, boom. And like two people like each other and they engage in this and whatever. And like, it's very just like kind of like factual. It's very scientific. And there's so much more to that. And you find young people going to porn, understanding that to be the only example of sex. And then they try to mimic what they see in the porn in the bedroom with their partners and never learn, if they never engage with any of these kinds of like sex education pages on social media, never learn that sex is so much more than what you're going to see in a porn video. And you create this pressure or this image of yourself of who you're supposed to be in the bedroom. And that may be the furthest from who you actually are when you're engaging in like confident sex. And you become unconfident because you're like, well, I'm not doing it like X, Y, and Z, or it doesn't look like it's supposed to be based on this porn. And again, you're kind of back in that situation where you're in your head. And you have to understand what sex is for you, because it's not going to be the same for everybody.
Wow. You hit it. It's so not going to be the same for everybody. Everybody's just response to pleasures. Our response to things are so different. Like, of course, sex is going to be different. But like you said, their first look at sex was porn, and it's so performative, and it is, you know, entertainment, you know. So
right.
And it is education. You know, there's work to be done and undone and all that stuff. That is our job. That's our job here, to not really repeat history, but to look at history and then try to like make the changes necessary to be able to go in a forward movement. It just it sometimes seems like, you know, we put in so much work. You know, we've been trying to help people understand themselves, but everyone needs to know that they have to put in the work. You know, we as educators,
yes.
we can only do but so much. You know, we can change your life, but it's up to you to really to put in that work to maintain that life. You know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the reality for any teacher, you know,
right.
Any teacher, whether you're in like your traditional school, K through 12, or a professor in college, whatever it may be, it's all the same thing. It's okay. Here's the information. Here's how to use it. Go use it. But if you're not going to use it, then you can't expect results. You can't expect an A or at least a B minus. Like, you know, if you're not going to put in the work, you can't expect there to be some kind of miracle on the end. You have to take what is being put in front of you and practice that. So you figure out what works for you, what, you know, quote unquote study habits work for you to master whatever you're trying to master that's in front of you.
We gonna get it popping. Like, I have so much hope, especially with the new generation. Like, they're becoming so much more smart so fast. It's like, damn.
Yeah.
Them have businesses. I'm like, dang, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, but and that is evolution, you know. So we have to just see the beauty in forever growing and knowing that we are here on earth to kind of go through some things so that we can help the new generation. So I believe what we're doing, like I said, is God's work. So I'm happy about that.
Absolutely. Yes. And I just, as we start closing up this episode, I really want to emphasize the importance of engaging in sex education content on social media. Just from my own personal experience, I grew up with a very open mother who was very willing to answer all kinds of questions and has told me all kinds of stories about her own respective sexcapades. But there are certain things that I have never taken into consideration until I engage in these sex education pages, including yours and some others. And, there are certain perspectives that are out there that I didn't even know to try to dive into for myself, and have really kind of recreated my view on sex and how to approach it, but also how to have a conversation about it with others. Like, I have a younger sister who's 17. She's going to be going to college soon. She hasn't, had any real sexual experiences, and having her understand the importance of having confidence and asking questions and creating those boundaries. And then also, of course, I now have a daughter, given she's only 1. But what are those conversations going to look like when I have to have those conversations with her? How should I be framing them? What am I open to helping her explore? And creating that space for her to feel comfortable to talk about these things and engage in this kind of information. And then for anybody who's, in our generation in the first place, like, don't be afraid to follow these pages. Like, it's not taboo. People have sex. People have been having, like, how do you think we got here? It is 2021. People have been having sex left and right. That's, why the reason why that you're on this earth. So, like, let's understand that, there are so many different kinds of complexities when it comes to sex. So we should be fully educated in it, especially if we're going to engage in it. You're engaging in something, you should be educated in it. And there are so many amazing communities that are out there, including yours, Sex with Baddies and Coach Baddie, that are just really honing in on the importance of self-love and confidence when engaging in something that is very natural to the human race.
Yes. No, definitely. And I have a show every Thursday called The Hot Seat. Yeah, called The Hot Seat, where I'm asking people, like, all about their sex life. Like, this is real time, real sex stories, real, like, and the stuff that I hear is like, wow, like, you have to learn that, like, by yourself, like, like, you have to go through that. Like, I mean, it didn't ruin anyone, because, it's growth, but it's like, wow, if we did have education, we would feel just a little bit different about, our sex life, and kind of release some traumas that was built up too. Just feeling really seen. I feel like my show provides a place where people are feeling really seen and heard, and all that good stuff, all that necessary stuff that we need as humans. So I have that. Y'all can check that out. It's 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every single Thursday. And I also have some workshops too. Like, I do, twerk shops and sensual workshops where people can, like, really get into their bodies and dance and enjoy themselves. And I have one workshop too where I'm, like, teaching people how to take sexy pictures.
Yes.
So if anyone is interested in that, definitely y'all can, like, join that, and even join, like, my coaching, because that shit works too. That's another thing that should be on a shirt. Okay.
Yes.
But yeah, so thank you so much for having me on, though.
You are now listening to You Heard.